Hello and welcome back to my Magic 3 Isles of Terra. So this will be a bit of a Might and Magic history video, because I reviewed all sorts of information on what actually happened in and around this game, from bits and pieces scattered throughout the game itself and also in certain third-party information sources. And I compiled a list that, in my opinion, is the most comprehensive list of things that could have actually happened there. It's not the only possible interpretation, because many of the hints do leave quite a bit of room for it, but I think this one is fairly good, though it would be interesting to hear other ones. So, let's start from the very beginning, and the thing that was mentioned very prominently at the very end of this game. The Grand Experiment. So, the Ancients, which are a super civilization, decide to start a new experiment, calling it the Grand Experiment, that is meant to supplant indigenous ecosystems on other planets with ecosystems of their own. In other words, it's a plan to colonize other planets. An interesting idea. So, first of all, Ancients built the Shikbath Zera, codename Wandering Seed, which seems to be a sort of cron. And to do that, it looks like they use solar power, because they use the energy and heat from the stars. Once built, they also built Guardians. Most prominently, they built Sheltem, a Guardian unit that is assigned to be the Guardian of Terra once the Shikbath Zera arrives on the planet. Then, Ancients also installed memory receptacles into the Shikbath Zera that are meant so that the Guardians of Terra could transfer their knowledge and store it there for a while in case of an emergency, so that the knowledge isn't lost forever. Finally, Ancients used elemental manipulation in order to induce elementals to fight each other, and in doing so, to create a rich land, so that they could use it as part of their terraform platform modules, which seem to be a type of Varns. So, with that done, the Ancients introduced humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes, and orcs into the land. The elements were still fighting each other, so it was a bumpy ride for them, but the humanoids learned to use magic and managed to contain the elementals, much like on the Crom that we saw in Might and Magic 2 Gates to Another World. So, next, these humanoids established kingdoms based on their alignments, looks like. And finally, Ancients were quite good with that, and they decided to start the experiment and send the Shikbath Zera to the third planet of the Minos system, called Terra. The Minos system is actually on the edge of the ancient space, so they are near creator space, and so they are under threat of the invasion from the creators. However, it looks like that never happened, at least not up to this point in time that we are seeing. Interestingly enough, what did happen is what you can see right now in Heroes Chronicles: The Fiery Moon, where Tarnum is actually fighting some of the minions of the creators right now. So that is something interesting too. So, next. While they were traveling to Terra, Sheltem sent vagabonds to try and find secrets hidden on the terraform platform modules that are carried by the Shikbath Zera. The vagabonds learn much and return back to the insides of the Shikbath Zera, where Sheltem does something that he was not supposed to do. That is, he transfers their memories into the memory receptacles that were originally intended for much different uses. Doing that, he creates the Sleepers of Sheltem. So finally, the Shikbath Zera arrives and starts orbiting the planet of Terra. However, for certain reasons, Sheltem decides not to carry out the orders that the ancients wanted him to carry out, and he undermines the grand experiment. He does not order the Shikbath Zera to land or to put the terraform platform modules into Terra. So the whole spaceship is actually just orbiting the planet itself and not doing anything else. Meanwhile, there is another guardian called Ferdal the Erudite, which seems to be trying to learn as much as he can about everything. So he hears about the Sleepers of Sheltem and tries to learn what they know. He goes and interfaces with the memory receptacles on the Shikbath Zera. But while doing that, the Sleepers of Sheltem try to regain autonomous form once again, and they upload themselves onto Ferdal in order to do that. That makes everything quite bad, because all those programs interfere with one another, and so Ferdal malfunctions. By doing that, he becomes Ferdal the Mad, and he goes on a rampage throughout the whole vessel. He goes at least from the aft storage sector to the forward storage sector, destroying everything in his path. He reaches the gemstone altars in the forward storage sector, also caps the Fountain of Nyara by doing so. While he is out on a rampage, both Sheltem and the Ancients try to stop him. They send security forces, which succeed in stopping Ferdal, but not after he already has done a considerable damage to the Shikbath Zera. It is so damaged and irreparable that it cannot sustain the orbit. The orbit decays, and the Shikbath Zera plummets into the Great Sea of Terra. It is such a huge ship that it manages to destroy the entire kingdom of Watermain. The entire civilization is wiped out, if not by the Shikbath Zera itself physically falling on top of it, then by the shockwave sent out by such a huge object impacting the planet. While doing that, also, the terraform platform modules that were carried by the Shikbath Zera shatter into pieces, thus creating the Isles of Terra. So, with that done, the Ancients learn about this tragedy, and they build and send Corak in order to retrieve Sheltem and repair it, as well as take over his place as the Guardian of Terra. While he's on his way, Sheltem acts on his own and does all sorts of things that the Ancients do not approve of. So first he abducts Princess Trueberry, and when Prince Smallberry tries to free her, he kills him as well. In the end, Princess Trueberry no longer can feel any sort of glee, and later on just stays in her hut. After that, Sheltem disturbs the balance between the three alignments of men. And even though before they managed to exist quite peacefully with one another, now they start to war against one another. Then, while that is going on, Ancients build another Kron, which we only know as Kron from Might and Magic 2 Gates to Another World. One of the things that they want the Kron to do is to finally do the right thing on Terra and create new proper continents there. So 4 of the Varns in Kron 2, well, in Kron itself from Might and Magic 2, are meant exactly for that, integration into Terra. There are other Varns that it carries that are meant for integration into other planets. So while it is sent out, Corak arrives on Terra, and he quite easily captures Sheltem and carries him away. Sheltem wakes up while doing that, manages to subvert everything, and it just so happens that they were flying by the Kron. So he escapes onto Varn 4. And then the events of Might and Magic 1 Secret of the Inner Sanctum happen. Sheltem is ousted and has to escape into Kron itself. Then Kron reaches Terra, and the events of Might and Magic 2 Gates to Another World happen, during which Sheltem escapes to Terra, but also embeds a copy of his personality into the computers of Kron. Thankfully, due to the interference from our former party and Corak, his plan does not work out and the Kron doesn't self-destruct. Instead, it carries out its original plan and sends down 4 Varns, and moves on to other planets. Since Sheltem is still technically the guardian of Terra, he this time does not refuse and does integrate the Varns into Terra, although too hastily and without actually doing the job properly. And then finally the events of this game, Might and Magic 3 Hours of Terra, happen, and well, Sheltem tries to defend against Corak. He does all kinds of things in order to stop him, but eventually Corak manages to find a way to the main control sector and fight Sheltem physically. And our party too helps out with that. They also make their way into the main control sector. But while Corak is distracted, Sheltem hops into one of the escape pods that are still functioning on the Shikbath Zera and escapes the planet. Corak follows quite closely behind, and our party also follows them. And that is where the events of the next game will start. But, well, that is for some other time. So yes, that is, I believe, the most comprehensive story that I could put together. Some events might have happened in a different order, because there's very little indication of how these things should have been ordered, but I think this storyline does work out quite well like that. And there's another thing I wanted to show you, that is the map of the Isles of Terra. So how things work out here. You can see all the isles and whatnot. This is the Great Isle and whatnot. And the Great Sea is... Actually, it's smart here. I believe that the Great Sea is the entire thing here as well. It's just that it's hard to market anywhere here. And the Shikbath Zera, how it's laid out here. If you look at that, the pyramids are marked on the map itself. So this is where the forward storage sector is. This is where the central control sector is. This is about where I would believe the aft storage sector is. Then the engine sectors. The alpha engine sector is here, the beta engine sector is here, and the main engine sector is here. And finally, the main control sector, aka the helm, aka the bridge, is over there somewhere. It's even off the map itself. So from here you can actually see how the outline of the Shikbath Zera looks like. It's pretty much like this. So it is absolutely gigantic. It's enormous. Thinking about such a huge ship impacting the planet of Terra, it would have caused a lot of destruction. Tsunamis, shockwaves, what have you. So it's just incredible that it actually managed to retain its form and didn't shatter by itself. But you can see, like, here it's quite clearly a part of the platform module that got shattered into 3 pieces. And it was even told that the crystal mountains here got, like, shattered and disconnected from the rest of the mountains. It's very interesting how everything works like that. And it's possible that all those events that happened and because of which all the creatures that are in the named places are not there, it's possible that it happened exactly during the time when it crashed. So it's all very interesting. It's something you probably would not be able to discern by yourself if you didn't have all the information and if you didn't piece together all of that into one coherent story. It's interesting like that. So yes, that's, I think, all I wanted to cover about the current history of the world. We will get to know a bit more of what happened with the story in later games, but I think this is about where we will no longer need any extra information to get that.